Hey guys, Dr. Nathan Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, an affiliate of the Wellness Way. Happy Monday evening, guys. It's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. If you are joining us right now, please make sure that you say hello and also let me know where you guys are watching from as well. Right now, we're streaming live to Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson, also Facebook on Exemplify Health Center. We're streaming also to YouTube at Dr. Nathan Thompson. And then also here on my phone, we're streaming live to Instagram. And right now, I think we have almost 100 people that are watching right now. So guys, thank you very much. Again, let me know where you're watching from and make sure that you say hello. And as always, guys, please make sure that you share this video. So last week I had the bright idea to start talking about allergy, especially since we're going into the quote unquote allergy season. And I said, okay, let's talk a little bit about allergies because I've been getting a lot of question about that. Allergies, seasonal allergies, food allergies, what medicine actually recognizes as an IgE food allergy. But I'm actually going to talk about all of this together and how it relates to the immune system. And as I kept going, I said, this is going to be way too long for 1 week. So we're going to break it up into 3 different weeks. Please stay with me with it. If it might be a little bit scatterbrained, I would probably agree with you. But there's just a lot of ideas that I want to get out with you just to help you to understand allergy, to help you to understand the immune system. And so the first thing that I want to go over with you, in regards to allergies, what I would call part 1 is we're going to talk about why on earth is it exploding? Is it just something that we're recognizing more, or is it in fact exploding? And we're going to talk about what an allergy is. We're going to talk about some statistics on allergy, especially over the last 30 or 40 years. I'm going to give you some interesting research. But I want you guys to understand that, is there a problem that's going on? The answer is yes. Autoimmunity. I'll even say, guys, hey, autoimmunity, look at how it is actually getting worse. And then you'll have someone say, well, we're just able to recognize it better. The diagnosis is better. Well, you're talking about allergy or you're talking about anything. It's like, well, our testing has actually gotten better. Okay. But I don't agree with that at all, because even if you look at some of the most basic things that they knew how to diagnose 30 or 40 years ago, you're seeing that those things are in fact getting worse. So let's talk about why on earth is this exploding. Part 2, I'm going to go over here is what is causing it. And here are some things that you really need to look out for. Here's why it happens. And then the third part, we'll go over with you some solutions, actually looking at research that show, hey, these are some of the things that you need to do, especially when it comes to allergies. So why on earth is this problem, exploding when it comes to allergies? And in fact, go ahead and leave a comment if you think that children with allergies is getting worse. If you look at, even if you're looking at the United States, people with asthma is getting worse. Autoimmunity is getting worse. Let me know if you feel that it's getting worse or not, because I'll show you actually the statistics that are involved with it. So allergies, are they exploding? We still have people that are jumping on, by the way. So while we're doing that, guys, if you don't, please give us a follow. I'd always appreciate that. You can follow us on YouTube. We'll upload new videos once or twice every single week. Same thing with Rumble, which is just a different platform, but doesn't take things down, doesn't censor. And then also, if you want to see short reels that we do on Instagram, also on TikTok, you can follow us on that as well. I have an interesting one that I put on Instagram and on TikTok. And I fire some shots. And just remember this, guys, I will never fire shots at people unless they fire it first. Okay. I am a person that wants to live in peace. But if you say something stupid against me, well, then I will defend myself. I have no problems actually doing that. But I think that social media should be a wonderful place in which you are giving ideas, but never attacking people, and never bully on it, which has actually happened to me, quite a bit over the last 6 months or so. But hey, I signed up for it. And just remember this: hurt people hurt people. But truly mature people who have been hurt, their job is to help and to help people heal. So a lot of people need a lot of healing to do. And then again, guys, our next inflammation talk is coming up on Thursday, April 27th at 6:00 p.m. here at Exemplify Health Center. This is an in-person event. I know we got people who still register. They're from like Canada, or they're from different parts of the United States. This is for people who are in specifically the Chicagoland area. This is an in-person event, and we're going to talk about inflammation. And guys, inflammation is probably, no matter what spectrum that you are, and if you are on the medicine spectrum, if you're on the natural healing spectrum, I think both of them actually, when it comes to inflammation, don't really understand it. And so basically, when we talk about inflammation, we'll talk about, hey, it's actually needed, but you can't keep hurting yourself because the body's always going to have to respond to either injury form proteins, things like that. So just because you have inflammation doesn't necessarily mean it's good. You have to know what is causing it specifically. So, guys, all you have to do is go to the top of the page here. If you're on Instagram, go to the top of the page on Dr. Nathan Thompson on Facebook, Dr. Nathan Thompson or Exemplify Health Center on Facebook. You go to the top page, register for an Eventbrite link. It is free to attend. Make sure you get registered for it because the registration will close, I believe, by Wednesday night at midnight, and we still have people who are signing up for it. So make sure that you do that. All right. So let's talk about allergies, guys. Allergies part one. Why on earth is it actually exploding? Let's go over first and foremost some of the myths that are actually behind allergies. And I hear people say these things all the time. In fact, I'm actually someone who grew up with terrible allergies. I grew up with allergies. And in fact, I think I spent a third of my life being drowsy on antihistamines in order to counteract a histamine response due to some kind of allergy. And it was actually seasonal allergies in the spring and in the fall that my immune system was reacting to so heavily. So the answer is take an antihistamine. And yeah, that caused the allergy response to go down. I'll explain how that happens in just a second when you talk about how these medications are actually working. But it also had a side effect of me being drowsy all the time, which now they've actually come out with anti-drowsy, antihistamines that don't cross the blood-brain barrier. But the problem is they cause a lot of other things as well. So the first thing that I want to go over with you is that the allergy myth is that all allergies are just genetic. Meaning my mom had it, my dad had it, that means I'm going to get it. I was told that. The only problem is I didn't have any allergies until I was 4 years of age. And then boom, allergies and asthma all showed up on my doorstep at once and then very, very severe. And you got to understand, if this is genetic, this should actually be expressed from birth. If something is purely genetic, it should be expressed from birth. But the thing is that we all want to blame everything on our genes. So the reality is my question is because you can't move forward unless you're willing to ask the questions. People actually get offended when you ask a question that they can't answer. But my question is why do people develop allergies at different times? Have you guys ever noticed this? Okay. Have you ever noticed that people will develop allergies, even if we're just talking about seasonal allergies, and they develop it at different times in their life? Some people develop it at 4, some people develop it at 6. I've even seen people, it's like, you know what? I'm in my 30s, and all of a sudden I'm starting to develop allergies. And they're dumbfounded because they all think that it's just genetic. But just remember, if you understand what allergy is, you understand how allergy plays a role in the immune system plays a role in allergy, then you'll understand that you technically can get an allergy at any time. How about this myth? The immune system is just overreacting to harmless proteins. It's the same thing when you talk about autoimmunity, because with autoimmunity, they'll say, well, it's the immune system that's mistaking your body as a foreign invader. No, it's not. Because again, why do people get autoimmunity at different times? No, you don't have autoimmunity expressed at birth. So why is it expressed at different times? And why are people getting it at 22? Or they're getting diagnosed at 30 or 35 or 40. Why do they get it diagnosed at that time? And then they say, well, the body, I guess, is just messing up. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. So it was not messing up for the first 24 years of your life. But as soon as you hit age 25, the immune system said, wait a second, I forgot how to work right. And I'm just going to start messing up now. Question is what if the body isn't messing up? And if you understand the immune system is genetically programmed to react to a foreign protein. So if a foreign protein enters into the body and bypasses your barriers, then the immune system is genetically programmed to go after that. And that could be pet dander, that could be a food, that could be a bacteria, that could be a virus, that could be a toxin. The immune system is also designed in order to clean up tissue damage as well. So it's designed for healing and designed for repair. That's how the body eliminates that in order to protect it. And guess where most of that immune system is sitting? It is sitting at your barriers, which is why barrier function, lungs, gastrointestinal system, genitourinary barrier, and the skin, why those barriers are so important. So, doesn't the immune system, but if we're saying that it's overreacting, well, doesn't the immune system really just, isn't it designed to react to any kind of foreign protein? And maybe it's quote unquote seeing those proteins because something else might have happened. And where I'm going with this is maybe there was a breakdown of the barrier in which things were could have been leaking through. Maybe they did something, a procedure that bypassed the barrier and inserted proteins directly into the body by not having a proper immune system response. Hint, hint. And so maybe those things are happening, and the immune system, which was never designed in order to try to deal with those things, now has to deal with a new stressor. Okay. Now, I will say this because I've heard this too. Well, my mom had allergies. My mom had asthma. I guess I'm going to have it too. And I've had people actually argue the whole idea behind genetics, and they'll say, well, my son has an eye, a strabismus, an eye that's going this way. And the reason why is because my mom's cousin, twice removed, also had it as well. So we're always digging. We're always trying to find where's the genetic link to this. But I want you to think of this. I was an allergy sufferer, an asthma sufferer. So bad, antihistamines, so bad, asthma medication, so bad, an inhaler, exercise induced asthma. Now I don't have any of that, and I don't take any medications or anything for that. So my question is, well, my mom had them too. I had them too. We share the same genes. I passed on my genes to my children, but none of my kids have allergies or asthma. So what happened? Did my genetics magically change? Well, maybe they did because I changed my genetics. Or maybe it has to do with not doing things that are insulting the immune system to cause an allergy response in the first place. So I want to say this is tough. This might be offensive to you, but I will always say this. I've never seen anybody change unless they've first been offended. In order for you to change, there has to be some level of offense. But I'm going to say this when it comes to your genes is that believing that everything wrong with your health is solely genetic and that your body is just making a mistake, the only thing that it will do for you is that it will make you lazy or it will make you hopeless or maybe a combination of the both. Let me say that again. If you believe that everything wrong with your health is genetic or that the body is just making a mistake or messing up, it will only leave you either lazy or hopeless or maybe even both. And that's why we want to blame everything wrong with our life on our genetics. And think of this, if it's all genetics, you have no hope. There is nothing that you can do unless you rely on the salvation of a miracle medication. Okay. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't take medications and things like that, but you should be working on why it's happening while you are on the medication. Okay. Should be a short-term fix to a problem that potentially has been there for a very, very long time. So it'll either make you lazy, meaning there's nothing that I can do. I'm not going to work on my own life. I'm not going to work on my own health because a medicine is just going to be my savior, or it's just going to make you hopeless. And you're going to say, well, if that's the case, there's nothing else that I can do. This is my only option. And so I always will say this, what if all the problems with your health, what if they were 95% genetic and they were 5% under your control or responsibility? Honestly, guys, the only way for you to get better is to take 100% responsibility for that 5%. That's the only way for you to get better and to enjoy the journey along the way of restoration. But I believe that when it comes to genetics, it is very, very few of it is left up to genetics. So, what about allergies? Is it exploding? I asked this question. I haven't seen if people have responded or not, But what's this incidence of allergy? Has it gotten worse? And my answer is an emphatic yes, yes, yes. I'll say it again. Yes. The reason why I say this is look at anything that involves we'll call it a hyper immune system response. So look at autoimmunity, look at things like asthma, look at allergies, look at food allergies too, like an IgE type food allergy. There's different types of immune system responses when it comes to food allergy. So you have to look at this and ask the question honestly: is it getting better or is it getting worse? Okay. So this actually comes from the New England Journal of Medicine. Okay. So New England Journal of Medicine, and here's what they actually say. So this comes from 2002. And they looked at the incidence of immune system disorders, and they looked at from 1950 to 2000. And I would hedge my bets to say, yes, it even has in fact gotten worse. And when they look at this, uh, one of the things that they say is look at some autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, and look at type 1 diabetes, and you will see that how much that they have actually exploded as a result. So look at that and then look at when they started to explode as well. The other thing, if you look at the incidence of asthma, almost a straight line going straight up since about 1980. And you can see how all of those things have absolutely, as far as their percentage, the incidence, not the number of people, but the incidence in some cases have actually gone up almost 300% within a 10 to 15 year span. And that's when it comes to even asthma. Okay. Something has to be going wrong because it's not our genetics that are changing, but something has to be changing within our environment. Okay. Now, the other thing too is if you look at the peanut allergy incidence, okay, look at the peanut allergy incidence from 2001 to 2017. So if you look at peanut allergy incidence, you can see that it was about at 2% in 2001. And then you look at 2017 and the incidence is about 5%. So over the course of about 17 years, 16 years, you've seen the incidence of just peanut allergies as far as an anaphylaxis IgE response. You've seen that it has gone up by 250%. So let me ask you a question. Then is that our genetics that are changing, or is it something that we are doing that is so wrong that we're not understanding what the immune system is? Heck, maybe they understand how the immune system works, but maybe it could be a much more nefarious plan. I'll let you guys be the judge. Now, here's another study that they did, another stat that they did on asthma prevalence from 1980 to 1996 when it comes to just overall. Okay. So 1980, you looked at the number of children with asthma per 1,000 children. 1980 was sitting a little bit under 40. By the time they got to 1995, that number almost doubled in the course of about 15 years. But then you'll see that when they studied this in 97, 98, 99, you are seeing that asthma lifetime diagnosis, and even in 2001, 120 out of 1,000 children, a little bit more than that. So 12%, and this was in 2001. And I would say that this, in fact, has even gotten worse as well. Okay. Now, is this just in the United States? For those of you who are watching from Canada, this actually are statistics that come from Alberta, Canada. And they looked at the prevalence or the percentage of people, males and females, that were diagnosed with asthma, for example. So this actually takes it from not from 1980 to 1995, but from 1995 up to 2015. So in Alberta, Canada, the incidence in 1995 was at about 4%. And then by the time it went to 2015, the incidence went up to 12%, an increase of 300% over the course of 20 years. Okay. So is it getting worse? The answer is yes. So why on earth are our immune systems just absolutely on fire? And it's not just when you're talking about food allergies, not when you're talking about asthma. It's also when you're talking about autoimmunity as well. Think of how the immune system is responding. So this comes from the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences. Okay. So from the NIH, a division of the NIH, this is from May 2020. And the title of this is autoimmunity may be rising in the United States. No duh. I would agree with that as well. Now they're talking about adolescents. Okay. So when they look at adolescents, they looked at a study of over 14,000 participants. And really what they are looking for is they are looking for ANA, anti-nuclear antibodies, which is a standard medical test in order to see the presence of autoimmunity taking place. We take it a step further, and we're actually looking for autoantibodies to specific autoimmune conditions. We can screen for the top 38. Even though that they've identified now, I believe it's now 150 different autoimmune reactions. And all it does, guys, is it just describes with autoimmunity where I would call it tissue damage or immune system irritation is taking place. So if they have the presence of thyroid peroxidase antibodies, it just means that the inflammatory response is happening within the thyroid gland. So it just depends on where it's happening from, whether it's lupus, whether it's scleroderma, whether it's Hashimoto's, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, which is involving the joint capsules. It just describes actually where it is, but the immune response is all the same. So they looked at the presence of anti-nuclear antibodies. And then back in 1988, 1988 to 1991, out of these 14,000 participants, it was at 11%. And then you fast forward about 20 years, and it went up from 11% to almost 16%. So you are seeing about a 50%, almost a 50% increase in the presence of anti-nuclear antibodies in adolescents. Here's the interesting thing. The values for 12 to 19-year-olds increased nearly threefold over that period. So what they're saying is that it is absolutely increasing. The National Institutes of Health agrees with this as well. And then here's what their conclusion was. So the researchers, they want to know, even though while they're seeing this, they want to know why they are seeing these changes in autoimmunity in each of these groups, especially in teenagers. The scientists suggest because people have not changed much genetically during the past 30 years, of course, then factors related to lifestyle or the environment may be involved in these anti-nuclear antibody increases. So they're talking about, well, what are we doing as far as lifestyle? What is changing in regards to the environment? A lot of times they're going to go and they're going to blame pollution. They're going to involve the environment. And what they're basically saying, guys, is they're saying, hey, we know that this can't be genetic. This has got to be environment. There's got to be related to the lifestyle. We really don't know what's causing it. And as soon as you bring up something, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. As soon as you bring up that, they'll say, well, I know that it's definitely not that. Well, you just said that you have no idea what it is. So why are you taking that off the table? Unless you want your ivory tower to collapse. But you should be able to, and you should be looking at that from a scientific method. But if you aren't willing to look at that, then it means you're either afraid of what you will find, or you already know what's happening and are more than willing to actually cover it up. I want to show you a study that's really, really interesting. Okay. This is really, really interesting, just to give you a preview of what we're going to be talking about in part 2. And this comes from September 7th, 2023. And it is an article, and it comes from the Southern Medical Association. The title of the article actually not 2023, but 2021. So about a year and a half ago. The title of the article is The Role of Histamine in Depression. Let me say that again, the role of histamine in depression. A lot of you say, I've heard of histamines before. What on earth is that? And histamines are what are released from granulocytes, from things like basophils and eosinophils. It's discharged from those cells as an allergy response. Okay, so it's coming from certain types of immune system cells. Now, here's what they say. They say this: the role of histamine in depression. Some emerging data points to the immune system, particularly the inflammatory response, as a potential contributor to depression. Huh, that's interesting. Wait a second. You mean to tell me that depression is just not a chemical imbalance, that there's nothing that you can do about it? So, depression, the symptoms are real, but why aren't we actually trying to figure out what's happening from an inflammatory response? What's happening from a immunological response? We're not asking those questions, although some people actually are. So, let me say this again. Some emerging data points to the immune system, particularly the inflammatory process, as a potential contributor to depression. You guys ever thought about this? Why are there a lot of people who have a lot of allergy responses? Are there people with ADHD who have a lot of allergy responses as well? Have they ever asked those questions? So they ever asked the question, wow, maybe the reason why you're depressed, maybe the reason why you have ADD or ADHD, maybe there might be an immune system component to it. But no, we don't want to do that because we want to put them on a lifetime of medications and therapy that never ever gets them well. And that's not to discount those things, but the reality is that I don't see people who have overcome. I haven't seen them overcome. I see them just this back to kind of blah and then relapse down. Well, why would they relapse? Take away the mental aspect to it, but why would they relapse since I have no idea why that happened? Maybe it has to do with the immune system and the histamine response. So here's what they go on to say. Many individuals with depression are prescribed selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. These are called SSRIs to prevent the reabsorption of serotonin, meaning more serotonin is available to pass messages between neurons in the brain. It's just a neurotransmitter. So you have one neuron to the other neuron, and it releases a neurotransmitter, and it helps to transmit a nerve signal. Okay, so serotonin is. So here's what they say: more serotonin is available to pass messages between neurons. However, a significant proportion of patients do not find SSRIs beneficial. Can you believe that? That the number one thing in order to help with depression is that there's a statistically significant amount of people that take it and say, nope, didn't help me at all. So they wanted to, in this study, they wanted to figure this out. Okay. So here is what they did. This was actually from a team from Imperial College in London, UK. They wanted to investigate the link between inflammation, serotonin, and the effectiveness of SSRIs. Here is what they did, okay? What they did is they injected the mice, this was a study done in mice, with an inflammation-causing toxin. Interesting. The immune system has responded to a toxin with an inflammatory response, and it was called lipopolysaccharide, okay? So then when they injected the mice with this lipopolysaccharide, within minutes, the inflammation led to a robust decreases in extracellular serotonin in the mouse hippocampus, an area of the brain. And this was a report in the Journal of Neuroscience. Okay. So here is what they said. There is emerging evidence that inflammation plays a significant role in the clinical variability of SSRIs, though how SSRIs and inflammation intersect with synaptic serotonin modulation remains unknown. We show that these decreased serotonin levels because of inflammation are supported by what? An increased histamine activity. So when you inject things bypassing a barrier directly in, it's the type of immune system response that you are going to have. The immune system response, histamine release, and you're going to see a decrease in serotonin. So the question is, remember what they had to do? They had to bypass a normal immune system response by injecting a toxin directly through the skin. All right. And they found inflammation went up. And when we saw histamine response go up, we saw a significant decrease in serotonin. And this is what we have to be looking at on a deeper level as you see so many people who are suffering with allergy type response involving this type of reaction. Okay. Now, What's their conclusion? Their conclusion is always going to be, well, we need to find drugs for it, but we need to go deeper and to figure out why this is happening so much. So let's, guys, go over to the Mayo Clinic. Guys, if you're enjoying this, please, 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 please make sure that you share this video, especially bring people over to this page, help them to start thinking differently when it comes to your body, specifically the immune system and allergies. So let's go to the beloved Mayo Clinic that is well respected within healthcare. Let's just go and see what they say. So the Mayo Clinic talks about allergies, and here's what they say. Allergies occur when your immune system reacts to a foreign substance, such as pollen, bee venom, pet dander, or a food that doesn't cause a reaction in most people. Why does it cause a reaction in some, but not in others? Okay. Now, your immune system produces substances. These are known as antibodies. When you have allergies, your immune system makes antibodies that identify a particular allergen as harmful, even though it isn't. So that's what they say. Well, this shouldn't be harmful, but the immune system is flagging it as harmful. Remember, your immune system doesn't know what is harmful and not harmful. It is merely responding to proteins that don't belong in your body, major histocompatibility complex, okay, MHC. So your immune system is always scavenging things to say, is it you or is it not you? And it will always respond. It doesn't have a brain saying you shouldn't respond to this pet dander. It will respond to any kind of foreign protein. This is why we have barriers, guys, because the barriers are supposed to keep these things out, like skin, lung barrier, gastrointestinal barrier, genitourinary barrier. So what they also don't describe is that there's more than one antibody in your body. I'll talk about this during part 2, but you have IgG, IgA, IgD, IgM, and also IgE, which is literally 1/10,000th the amount of IgG that is present within your body. So Mayo Clinic goes on to say about symptoms of allergies. So these are the different types of things that you can have. You can have hay fever, also called allergic rhinitis, meaning my nose is running in response to an allergy like hay. Guys, my hay fever that I had was absolutely horrible. Here's the thing. When I was growing up, the only way that I could make money was to bale hay. And I would still do it because I wanted to make money. But I would actually hock myself up onto antihistamines, take my asthma medication. And let me tell you something, the next day was absolutely horrible for me. So hay fever can cause sneezing, itching, runny nose, watering red or swollen eyes, also known as conjunctivitis. You can also have a food allergy. They're describing one type of food allergy, which is known as an IgE, hypersensitivity response. A food allergy can cause tingling in the mouth, swelling in the lips, tongue, face, or throat, hives, or even anaphylaxis. Here's the interesting thing, guys, is you can measure an IgE food allergy, and you can measure it via mild, moderate, or severe, or very severe, because some people can even have an IgE food allergy and it be very very mild, and they almost don't even notice it because they're always consuming that food all the time, and they just kind of feel lousy all the time. So it can be a food allergy, and it can also be atopic dermatitis. So this can affect the skin as well. So one of them is called eczema. So eczema is an allergy response. So it will cause itchiness, redness of the skin, can cause it to flake or peel as the immune system builds a response to it as well. So again, what is it affecting? It's affecting the gastrointestinal system. It's affecting the lungs. It's affecting the nose. It's affecting the sinuses. It's affecting the skin. What is that affecting? It's affecting your barriers. These describe your barriers. Now, what does the Mayo Clinic say about causes? Okay, here's where we disagree 100%, because the Mayo Clinic will say this. An allergy starts when your immune system mistakes a normally harmless substance for a dangerous invader. The immune system then produces antibodies that remain on the alert for that particular allergen. When you're exposed to the allergen again, these antibodies can release a number of immune system chemicals, such as histamine, that cause allergy symptoms. Actually, it's not the antibodies that create the histamines, it's the immune system that does this. Common allergy triggers include airborne allergens such as pollen, animal dander, dust mites, mold, guys. When you're talking about water damage mold, that is extremely, extremely toxic. Certain foods like peanuts, tree nuts, wheat, soy, fish, egg, shellfish, eggs, and milk. This is just some of the most common ones. Why we will test a lot of times for some of the most common ones, but you can have a lot more than that. Insect stings, such as like the venom from a bee or a wasp sting. Medications, guys, like if you ever heard of a penicillin allergy and having an allergy to latex. And actually, some people can have an allergy response to all of those things. And that's why you will call it MCAS, in which you are having mast cell activation syndrome and things like that. When that's happening, we are looking and saying, holy cow, all right, what's happening here with the immune system? What's happening with barrier function? When did this start? Where did this get damaged? What's happening within the gastrointestinal system? Because they literally will respond to everything with a huge histamine response, which is why they just douse themselves with Benadryl all the time. So allergy medications. Here's what Mayo Clinic says about know your options. Here's your options. What's interesting, though, is when they say know your options, it only involves a medication. Okay, that's the only option that you can do, and this is why people are so confused because maybe they don't want this as an option. Maybe they say, "Hey, I would actually want to look deeper than just being on a medication." So, what can they prescribe for you? The first one is going to be an antihistamines. Antihistamines block histamine that's coming from certain cells of the immune system. Okay, during an allergic reaction. You guys may have heard this, or some of these medications. This would be like Allegra, Claritin, Zyrtec. So they're blocking histamines. Okay. Also, what you have is you have what are known as decongestants. Okay. Decongestants. Guys, here's what's interesting about decongestants because you may have heard of Zyrtec. If something's got a D on the end of it, it means decongestion. Sudafed. You guys ever heard a long time ago? Afrin. Okay. Um, so the problem is quick temporary relief of nasal and sinus congestion. Okay. The reason why when you go to the drugstore and they say you can only buy so many and you need to be a certain age in order to buy these things. The reason why is because the ingredients in these are what are used to make methamphetamine, meth. We're talking about meth. All right. Not something that I would be super, super excited to be using. You can also, they'll might recommend corticosteroids and corticosteroids, especially if it's happening on the skin, they'll recommend a corticosteroids. Things like Flonase, Nasonex, Pulmicort, prednisone, hydrocortisone. These are all considered corticosteroids. And basically what they do is they just squash the whole immune system response. So they're actually saying we're going to block the inflammatory response. That's all they do. In fact, much of what medicine does is to either just decrease the signal of something, to actually manipulate something up or down, or to knock out an immune response. That's essentially what they are doing. And then you also have leukotriene inhibitors. These are some of the new ones. Here's what's interesting, though. Some of the leukotriene inhibitors that some people, leukotriene inhibitors can cause psychological problems such as anxiety, depression, strange dreams, trouble sleeping, and suicidal thinking and behavior. That's very, very interesting. Okay. So when you look at this, you also have the option of allergen immunotherapy. This is actually something my mom did. She got allergy shots. So immunotherapy is carefully timed, gradually increase to expose yourself to more and more allergens. And then such as pollens and dust mites and molds. The goal is to train the body's immune system not to react to these allergens. So, and a lot of times this is what's called that you're getting allergy shots. One of the things that's interesting is my mom used to get allergy shots. She almost died as a result of getting allergy shots because the person administering it gave her like 10 times the amount that she was supposed to. That was actually really, really scary. So I want you to think of this. When you start looking at the medications and you look at how do these work, then now you start to see, well, maybe now I can start to understand how the immune system works. Because when you look at conventional healthcare and allergies, just look at how these drugs are working. Okay. Number one, what they're doing is they're blocking the immune response at the target tissue. So, like a histamine blocker, they're saying, okay, immune system, you can go ahead and release histamines, but we're going to block them at the target tissue. Okay. So you won't actually feel the response. It may block the immune response at the immune cells. So it may go to the immune cell and say, we're not going to let you discharge your histamines. It may also work like corticosteroid. Means we're just going to go ahead and we're going to dampen the whole immune system response. Or what we're going to do is give you allergy shots. We're going to try to chemically override the immune system response. And when you look at it, all it is a clever manipulation. That's all that it is. And the question is, guys, is it actually getting to the cause? How does any of this address the possible causes? All they can do is put out the fire. Hallelujah. Awesome. But how many times have your doctor actually sat down with you and said, man, we really need to figure out why on earth this is happening? And they don't, because they're not trained in how this happens. Because much of what, guys, this is true in so many different professions. Yes, it's true in medicine. Yes, it's even true in chiropractic. Yes, it's even true in naturopathic. Yes, it's even true is saying, this is what we do, now do it. And then we speak from authority saying, this is how we do it. And only thing we're doing is we're just regurgitating what someone else taught us above, or what is accepted to be taught at schools and things like that. I will go to say that education in general is wildly inadequate. And I don't care what school you are going to, it is wildly inadequate. And it doesn't teach people how to start thinking differently. Doesn't teach people how to start thinking at all and to start thinking these things through. But all of these things, they don't address causes. And instead, what they're doing is they're only addressing symptoms. So, guys, allergies part 2. This is going to be next week, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time on Monday. I don't even know what the date is at this point, but we're going to talk about the immune system, and I'm going to help you to understand an antibody response, how the immune system works. And I'm also going to you'll start thinking about, this is really interesting, is that what is happening to our barrier function? And if this is how the immune system works, why is the immune system, quote unquote, overreacting? So we'll talk about the immune system, and we'll talk about some solutions that you can do as far as not hurting the barrier function, or even how to even start testing it to see, in fact, why this is happening. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview. Okay. Just so that you can see this. All right. Now, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow, or next week. Here's what's really, really interesting. This comes from Science News from Austrian Science Fund. This was actually in 2007. Here's what's interesting. This will give you a little bit of a preview. But the title of the article was High Levels of Antibodies and Low Levels of Cancer. Okay. High levels of allergies, low levels of cancer. And I want you to think of the spectrum between the two. Low functioning immune system cancer, high immune system going absolutely haywire. I want you to think of autoimmunity, high inflammation like cardiovascular disease, and then think of that allergies, think of that up here versus low functioning immune system with cancer. So here's actually what to say, and I'll talk about it next week as well. So active immunization. Okay. Active immunization can stimulate the body to produce highly efficient IgE antibodies that attack tumors. They actually are admitting it. Think about that. Active immunization can trigger an IgE allergy response. Okay. Here's what they go on to say. The allergies produced during the project that they did belong to a class that also plays a role in the development of allergic reactions. Okay. Now, here is actually what they did. They were trying to cause an IgE reaction um, um, in order to stimulate IgE in hopes that it would actually go after tumors. Um, what's interesting is that when they injected the protein in this intestines, they saw that the antibody that was produced was an IgG allergy response. Interesting, because that are actually two different types of food allergies that can exist. But then when they went to the stomach and they injected a protein in the stomach and inhibited stomach acid production so that that protein couldn't get broken down, then one of the things that they saw was we had an IgE allergy response to it. Okay. So interesting that they had to inhibit the breakdown of that protein when they injected it into the stomach. Maybe there is one of the causes of food allergies is a loss of stomach acid production in order to break the proteins down, even if that's a toxin, or even if that's a bacteria, even if that's a virus, or even if that is a food. So that's interesting. I'll talk a little bit more about it next week. So guys, I appreciate, as always, for you joining me. Thank you so much. We'll be doing part 2. Please join me for then. And please make sure that you share this video and have other people join us as well. So I'll talk about a little bit more detail about allergies part 2, the immune system and solutions. And again, guys, if you're watching from the Chicagoland area, please go to the top of the page. Please get registered. How do I work with you, Dr. Thompson? Go to the top page, get registered for the inflammation talk on Thursday, April 27th at 6:00 p.m. That's coming up in 3 days. Get registered for it, because we're going to talk about the most important thing: how inflammation leads to chronic inflammation is leading to weight loss resistance, cancer, infertility, thyroid disease, autoimmune issues with hormones, arthritis, because it's the immune system that is producing the inflammation. You need to know where it's coming from and what you need to do in order to get it under control. That's the beauty of it. So guys, if you're from the Chicagoland area, please go ahead and please register up at the top of the page. For on Instagram, go to Linktree, and you will see on Eventbrite how to register for that as well. So guys, be well, be blessed. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Make sure that you are watching us on Instagram and on TikTok. We're going to be releasing a lot of awesome things. So guys, be well. And as always, remember who you are.